Hey guys, cheers for tuning into another video. We're just going to go over an update and some thoughts on the next patch that's coming in World of Warcraft. Blizzard is really on it when it comes to adding content and announcing what they're bringing next. Even if it's a little bit, it adds to the game, but there's some updates to this that sort of ties into someone that's also been playing Final Fantasy XIV for a little while. Now, I'll just go over what the headline for this one is: follower dungeons, which of the 8 dungeons in World and Dragonflight, I should say, on normal difficulty, you can queue with by yourself or up to 4 other players in your party of real people, and the last or remaining slots will be NPCs. So this is kind of what the ping system would I would assume would assist with, because you can ping an NPC to do something. This is, all intents and purposes, a direct copy, but with the improvement of you're filling in a remaining slot as an AI NPC role. The Final Fantasy one is strictly solo based, and the 4 remaining the 3 remaining slots is made with NPCs. However, ever since Square Enix announced Trust, or maybe a bit beforehand, all of the dungeons are very obviously made with Trust in mind. If anything, they've actually retooled the old dungeons to be more Trust compatible, which obviously tells us that when Square Enix is making a dungeon, they don't think about the player or the full group experience going forward. They're thinking about the solo player and the trust system in mind, which means, and this is to my experience, the dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV are extremely linear, and they have no real layers to them. Even though they can make it look like there's layers, there's actually not. There's no platforms to jump down from at will, like you can do in Neltharis especially. There's no branching pathways like the in Brackenhide Hollow. Azure Vault is incredibly layered, and it has a lot of obstructions on the route as well, and also CC that goes anywhere. You don't have to follow every single path in Azure Vault. You can take shortcuts, which Blizzard don't seem to mind, and they don't really break that dungeon either. So how the follower system is going to do these, I don't know. They're going to have to follow them in a very strict route, so you can't do your necessary shortcuts, as it were, because this is what I mean. The dungeons in World of Warcraft don't have this system in mind, and I really don't want them retrofitting. I don't want them retooling the old dungeons for this to take place, because I really like World of Warcraft dungeons. They're a lot more varied in what you see and what you can do to some extent, way more in comparison to Final Fantasy XIV. So I'm hoping the dungeon designs is still made with a full group of real people in mind, especially since we have the Mythic Plus system. So hopefully Blizzard doesn't go too far with this. Square Enix absolutely has. The dungeons, the new ones, are all made with it in mind. I find them really boring after the first run. They're not really good as repeated dungeons. They've retooled the old dungeons to fit it, and I don't really like how they've done that. I mean, it is a system that you can directly compare, and the only one up so far with this information versus the one in Square Enix is the fact that it's more flexible to who the AI role will be. But World of Warcraft was never really made to be a solo game, while in Final Fantasy they're really pushing that narrative. We can also see some additional tidbits of content. I'm not against these, as long as these type of content remain relevant in little tidbits as the expansions get released now. That'd be great. And if they introduce some of this into the whole world, That'd be really good as well. Like if you're leveling, if you're playing through the game, doing these little tidbits that basically are evergreened into the core of the system, it's fantastic. I don't know if that'll happen, but when you've got like these, discover the history of Dragon Isles, and meet a unique cast of characters, and just do some solo or group activities, that's part of it. This is really nice, and we really need more of this in a lot of the old world. A lot of Azeroth has really interesting tidbits of knowledge which isn't explained to you. You really have to go out your way to find it, and there's no kind of narrative way of the game presents it. And you've always got to give rewards, you just have to. We've got Reclaiming Gilneas, which will be good for Alliance players. As I'm Horde, I'm probably not going to bother with this too much. Now this is the other big headline, is the dragon riding system is going to be available to the whole game, not just Dragon Isles specifically. What's interesting is this is coming out vastly sooner than I was anticipating. I really thought this was going to come. My phone's going off. I really thought this was going to come at the very end of the pre-patch of the next expansion, but to have dynamic flight coming into the game this soon, pretty awesome. And we have other tidbits, actually new vanity stuff as well, or character creation options. Can't argue with that. And also, I just want to touch a little bit on user interface and accessibility. So this isn't an accessibility thing, but I recall something in the earlier portions of Dragonflight, or maybe before it released, there was mention of them adding to an extent, a controller support. Now, I was really hoping for that to come in, and the reason for that is, if you're just doing general stuff in the world, you're just doing generic world quests, you're just doing gathering, you're just moving A to B, you don't need the high APM rates that you have with your keyboard and mouse. This is just generic stuff. I really wanted a controller because I don't really want to use my mouse and keyboard when I'm just wanting to go to A to B. I wouldn't mind using a controller for that because it's a lot nicer, and when it comes to gathering, it's actually more comfortable. That's something you have to give the MMOs that support that feature. I'm not asking them to map out controllers to be able to use sufficiently in raids. Keyboard and mouse is still superior to that when it comes to low GCD actions. If you made it this far, guys, cheers for tuning in. Give me a like, give it a subscribe. I'm going to be doing more content related stuff for World of Warcraft because it's really taking me in again. Till next time, guys.